Welcome to another episode of Tuesdays with Jakey. It is Tuesday, June 22nd, 2021, and what a couple weeks it's been, man. Um, I felt like I was really into the swing of things here with this podcast, and I usually record these things on Monday. Today it's Tuesday morning, and I gotta get it done early because I gotta go somewhere today, and I dreaded it all day yesterday. I was having a really bad day yesterday, and really, it's been a really difficult week because last week's episode was intense. It was intensely personal, and it's the one I recorded with Toby Morse that was supposed to be part of. I was supposed to just be interviewing Toby, and then he flipped it on me and interviewed me, and we got all deep into my mental health struggles and suicide attempts and depression and all sorts of shit. My hearing loss, my insecurities, my financial ruin, and it's been an incredibly difficult week. Like last week on Monday, Toby put the episode out on his podcast, and I was just kind of frozen all day last Monday, and yeah, I didn't know what to make of it, and I'm still kind of struggling with it. But last Monday was a really, really rough day. I just felt super exposed and vulnerable in a way I haven't felt in quite some time. And I think it was the idea of putting all this stuff out there. And I had putting it out to strangers in treatment and in therapy was easy. Comparatively easy. Because saying shit about yourself to strangers is way different than saying it to your friends. And like when you're saying it to strangers, if you're in a treatment center, it's only going as far as that room. But putting it out there for the quote unquote world, obviously, I say things like saying it in public and putting it out there for the world. And obviously, it's available to the world. But obviously, Toby has a lot of listeners on his podcast, and I have a bunch. But it's still not like putting it out there to the public. So, it's not like I didn't give a press conference. It's not airing on network television or anything like that. But it's still just, it's hard. It was hard to put out there. And I posted it to my Instagram when Toby posted it to his podcast feed. And I was somewhat cryptic on my Instagram. I just said, oh, it's a deep dive. We cried, and it's a heavy podcast. But obviously not, especially with social media, a lot of people will listen to something, look at something, but they're not going to listen to a 3-hour podcast. And then the next day, I woke up on Tuesday and I kind of felt like, all right, I'm going to put it out on my podcast today, and I'm going to kind of go deeper. And I put it out on my Facebook, and I put a post on there, and I kind of detailed a lot of stuff. And I said, in that post, I said that I had been experienced sexual abuse. I still have a hard time using the word victim, but I basically said I'd been a victim of sexual and physical abuse as a child, neglect, and I felt better Tuesday. I think because I just went and I worked on a farm all day Tuesday. So I kind of posted it and put it out there and put my podcast out, and then just disappeared for the day. And then I came home and I read a bunch of messages and I tried to reply to some, and then the rest of the week has just been, it kind of went up and down. And I got tons of fucking great positive messages, but I've had a hard time feeling them. I've had a hard time going back and looking at them, and I haven't replied to everybody. So if you sent me a message, if you left a comment on my Facebook or Instagram and I haven't replied, it's not that I haven't seen it and didn't appreciate it, but it's just hard to feel. It's hard to accept. It's hard to accept that I'm all right, because it was like, I guess all this when I got it out there and down in treatment in Florida and the therapy I've done since, that's like sort of been putting Band-Aids on all these wounds. And then I feel like last week with this podcast, I ripped the Band-Aid off, and there's still a fresh wound underneath. Like, hasn't done as much healing as I thought I have. Though that's not true. I've done a ton of healing. And but it was still, the wound wasn't completely healed. And I feel like, when you get a cut and you pour hydrogen peroxide on it and all that white stuff bubbles up, and that's supposedly like killing the bacteria. That's what I heard as a kid anyway. But you get all that white pus. That's what the past week has felt like. It felt like I ripped that Band-Aid off and then I poured hydrogen peroxide on it, and it's just been bubbling up. And I think that's the chemical reaction or whatever, emotional reaction that needs to happen before more healing can happen. So it's been an up and down week since then. And, I still don't know how to process it. I was actually, I very heavily weighed not even recording a podcast this week, because I don't know what to make of everything that's happened. And, I still don't. It's been fucking rough. And, I don't even know what to say today. Usually I make notes for a podcast. Usually I just kind of go off at the top of my head every week. And I used to make a lot of notes when I started the podcast, and now I make a lot less. And today I went and made some, but I don't even know how to get it. All the notes I made today were just topical stuff, not really deep emotional stuff. But yeah, I put that episode out and went to work on this farm, which something I've been doing for the past couple of weeks. I started it, I guess, the day after the last regular podcast I recorded. And I found a little job on a farm up here. It's an organic farm, an organic greens farm. They grow like all sorts of different greens: lettuce, kale, spinach, mustard greens. To be honest, I don't even know what else. But my friend Shanti up here has been friends with this couple who run a farm, Patsy and Dan, and they're a little kooky. Dan's definitely more kooky than Patsy. They run this farm. It's a moderately ramshackle operation. It's run by just the two of them, and they have a bunch of volunteers, and they've gotten some grants, and they got some grants from the community, from the local town here, I guess, to become like a teaching farm. So they have a bunch of volunteers, and we all go down there, and we get to plant some of our own stuff. So I've been going down there twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays. And the first week I worked Tuesday all day. I'm really like landscaping. But that first day, that was two weeks ago today. I went down there and I just spent the entire first day weeding. They showed me this patch of land, and they were like, they delineated kind of a 20-foot by 20-foot square, and they were like, weed all this. I was like, okay. I don't even know how to weed. But I figured it out pretty quickly. You just, if it's green, take it out. And anything that was grass or weed growing in, I just kind of like put a shovel down into the ground and got under the root, and then picked it up and shook out the dirt and put it in a wheelbarrow. And I ended up weeding this whole patch by myself. And then Dan tilled it, and then I built up the dirt on the ground into 6 planting beds. Each one was about 2.5, 3 feet wide, and a little kind of trough in between. And that's what you plant things in, I guess. And then I spent the second half of the day sifting and shoveling manure, or compost. Not manure. There's no animals on this farm. It smelled like manure. Felt like manure in my hands. And dude, I gotta say, like, the next day I was so fucking sore. I was just totally physically spent and wiped out. And then Wednesday, had the day off, didn't do anything. And then Thursday, I was like dreading going back in. Or actually, no. So that week I told them I would come in Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, right? So Wednesday, I woke up. I was so sore Tuesday night and Wednesday morning, and it rained Wednesday morning, or it was supposed to rain all day Wednesday. That was the forecast. And Patsy said, if it rains, we're not going to work. And I woke up, and that was, I guess, June 23rd, 14, June 9th. It had snowed. It snowed like 3 inches. Like when I woke up, it was raining. I woke up at like 7 a.m. I was supposed to be there at 10, and by like 9, it had turned to snow. And then it snowed about 3 inches. And I texted Patsy, and I guess I said, there's nothing to do today, right? We're not going to be working. She was like, yeah, no. And Thursday morning, we ended up just doing a half a day because the ground was still wet from the snow. And fucking snow on June 9th, right? That's the kind of climate I live in now. And last year, oddly enough, on June 8th, it had snowed 8 inches. It was right before I got here. Yesterday turned out to be the 1-year anniversary to the day, or Sunday. The June 20th was a 1-year anniversary to the day since I first got to McCall. I wouldn't say it's a 1-year anniversary since I've been living here, because I wasn't really living here when I got here. I came here just to visit, stayed a week, took off on my motorcycle for like 10 days, came back for 2 or 3 weeks, then took off on my motorcycle for 6 weeks. And it wasn't until I came back from that in like early September, right around Labor Day, that I asked my friends here if I could rent this place and stay here. But still, it felt like a monumental day, like 1 year to the day since I'd been here. But yeah, so I went back to the farm and did some more work, and then last week I ended up working there on Tuesday and Thursday, and 2 more full days of work, and my body was like still sore, but I'm getting more used to it. I was doing a lot of tree trimming with these like big electrical tree trimming devices. I don't even know what they're called, but these. I was using a weed whacker, a pole saw, and like some hand electric sickle trimmer. I think that's what it's called. Yeah, and just getting dirty, getting totally dirty, and like lugging around big, heavy pieces of equipment and raking and putting things in a wheelbarrow, and like it's nothing monumental physically, but it's way more work than I'm used to doing physically. And even when you're working out, like that's working out, lifting weights, push-ups, running, that's like one way of exercising. But when you're using your whole body and shoveling and things like shoveling and raking and digging, I was digging fence post holes with a fence post digger, which I'd never used before. Just use your body in a way you're not used to. And that has actually felt really good. I'm going back in there today, and I'm looking forward to it. And it's been interesting to like, hey, go trim all the low branches and everything off these 10 trees. And then you look at them and they're all a mess. And then you finish and you've raked all the ground underneath. It's like, it's very nice sort of feeling of accomplishment, and knowing that you like looking at something before you start and then after you're done and knowing like, all right, I did that. Like the work I'm doing has consequences and value, I guess. So yeah, that's been very interesting and humbling, quite humbling. And yeah, so I'm going back to that this week. I don't even have everything gathered, thoughts wise, and I'm sorry. But I still, coming back to like one of the best things about doing that last week was having 2 days where I didn't look at my phone and didn't look at any messages. And I ended up last Friday, after that second day of working on the farm, I got into a bunch of painting, and kind of like I've stumbled across a new style / like theme for my paintings, which is pretty cool. I think I painted Thursday after I got home last week. I just lose track of time. And yeah, I had a friend came and visited last week. Totally didn't even make a note of that. And it feels like a year ago at this point. But my friend Kepi Gooley, who used to be in a band called the Groovy Ghoulies and now tours as himself as just Kepi Gooley, he came up to visit. He's also a friend of Greg and Shanti, my landlords, my friends up here. He really came to visit them, but we got to hang out. He came up on Tuesday, And I had worked all day, and I came home, and I made us all a big dinner, spicy turmeric chickpea curry with carrots and cauliflower. It was very nice. And I made that for all of us. And then Wednesday, we spent the whole day together. We all went down to the farmer's market, and actually Patsy was selling her wares at the farmer's market. It was opening day of the farmer's market up here, and Patsy came out from behind the table and went up to Shanti and told her what a great worker I was and how conscientious, and they didn't need to ask me to do something twice, which I felt really good. Shanti told me, like, that's very out of character for Patsy. She's not really a complimentary type. So that made me feel good, and I went back the next day and got there at like 9:57. So I basically get there 9:57 or 9:58 for work that's supposed to start at 10 o'clock every morning. And she came out when I pulled up on my bike, and she was like, for someone who doesn't have to punch a time clock, like, you sure are prompt. And I was like, well, you asked me to be here at 10, so I'm here at 10. I've been going down there from 10 to 4, and a little half-hour lunch break in the middle of the day. And Kepi and I went for a big hike together. And I realized, like, Kepi was the first guy I had seen in McCall that I actually knew. I've been slowly starting to make some friends up here, and more so make acquaintances. I'm like, running into people at the grocery store I've seen somewhere else or talked to, and like starting to feel a little more sort of part of the community, I guess. And but it was interesting to see someone I knew from outside of here, and give a friend a big hug and go on a nice hike. And then we made flatbread pizzas on the grill from Greg's sourdough pizza bread, and I went back and worked for Thursday, and then kind of stumbled. Yeah, I guess that's when I stumbled upon this like new sort of pattern of painting. So I spent a lot of the day painting on Friday, and then again on Saturday, and now I've got like 6 or 7 paintings that are almost complete, that are all based on this one theme, that I guess probably when I finish them all, I'll post them on my Instagram and stuff. And that feels really fucking good. And I woke up Saturday, and I thought I was going to head up to this town called Yellow Pine, which I went to the weekend before. I'll get into that in a minute. But yeah, I woke up Saturday, and I was like, I went to bed Friday being like, I'll head up to Yellow Pine. And then I just had this like flash of inspiration as soon as I woke up. It was like 6:30 in the morning, and I was like, had this different idea for the way I've been doing these paintings. And I was like, oh my God, here's like, I think this opens a whole new sort of corridor of creativity for me. And so Saturday I ended up painting from like, I woke up at like 6:30, had this flash, and then woke up, meditated, and then started painting at like 7:30, and then painted straight through to like 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And then just kind of like watch hockey for the rest of the night. And then Sunday I was like, I'm going to go up to Yellow Pine. And, on Friday too, I registered my motorcycle, which I'd been riding around an unregistered motorcycle for 2 months because I lost the title to my bike, so I couldn't register it up here. So I had to apply for a duplicate title. Then it got mailed to California, and then it had to get mailed here, and long story, whatever. So I went and registered my bike, which was, that's a whole funny process down here at the DMV. And then I went to Brundage, the ski mountain. It was opening day for their summer season, where the chairlift is open for scenic rides and for taking mountain bikes up. And I had talked to my friends up here, Greg and Shanti, and they were like, hey, this opening day is happening today. Thought you'd want to know about it. They didn't tell me they were going, but after I registered the bike, I went, and then I ended up pulling up in the parking lot right next to them. And so we all rode up the chairlift together, which was cool, and ran into another guy I know who's kind of a neighbor. He lives like a 5-minute walk from here. And so I saw him. He was going up on his mountain bike, and then later that day I texted him, and I was like, hey, hope you stayed, it was great seeing you, hope you stayed safe and all that. And then Sunday morning I woke up, and I was just drinking a coffee. I meditated, started drinking some coffee, and was like, today I'll go to Yellow Pine. And he texted me, and he was like, hey dude, you want to go rafting today? And I was like, my first instinct was to say no. And that's odd, because I usually say yes to everything. But I was still feeling a little shell-shocked and was like, I don't know that I want to be like, I don't know this guy well. I don't know that I like him. I don't know that I don't like him. But, like, I didn't know that I wanted to be in a car with him for an hour, driving to where we're going to go rafting, and then be in a raft with him for 4 or 5 hours. You know, it's like, I just want to go be by myself. And that was my instinct, was to say no. And then I was like, you know what? How many times is someone going to offer to take me rafting? Like, people pay a lot of money to go rafting around here. It's like a very popular thing to do. And I guess it's like one of the touristy things to do in the summer. And especially there's this town called Riggins. It's like an hour north of here, and that's like the rafting capital of this part of Idaho anyway. And like, you drive through that town, it's nothing but rafting companies. I haven't even looked into how much it costs, but I'm sure it can't be cheap. So I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to go rafting. And I did, and it was cool. And I didn't know anything about whitewater rafting. And I learned a lot. I learned, like, just the logistics of doing it is hard. Like, you got to have a raft, you got to have a trailer, you got to have all these different accessories and stuff. But we, like, drove to one point, backed the trailer down into the river, pulled the raft off, tied it to a tree. I waited with the raft while he drove like 15 miles down the road, met up with some other friends, and then one of them drove everybody back up to where they had put their rafts in the water. And then we all went sort of as a group. Like, everyone was on their own rafts. Like, one raft had like 6 people on it. A bunch of rafts had 2. A couple of rafts just had 1. And spent like 4+ hours on the river rafting, plus stop for a lunch break. And I met some people who run a music festival up here, which I had heard about, Roseberry Music Festival. And they've got Yonder Mountain String Band playing this year, and Ryan Montbleu, acts I've worked with in the past. So I'm like, oh, that's kind of neat. It's a nonprofit venture. A lot of people have asked, like, are you going to book music up there? And it's like, I don't think so. I mean, I can't imagine. Obviously, their thing is a nonprofit, and it's been going on for a long time. And I met one of the guys who took it over. Another friend of mine who managed leftover salmon, John Joy, actually introduced me via text last Friday to a friend of his who puts this thing together. And it turns out those 2 guys are partners. So I met one of them, and I guess I'm going to go out and meet the other guys. But, like, I certainly don't think I'll be booking anything up here. Like, there's just not enough people to try to sell tickets for something. There's a pizzeria that does free music here, and the ski mountain does free music, and it's mostly bluegrass and jam band type of stuff. They hire bands to come down from Missoula and Boise. Yeah, but I couldn't see anything ticketed doing too well, because there's just not enough people. I guess Roseberry, they sell out every year. They said 1,200 people. But one of the guys who does Roseberry told me that someone had tried to do Widespread Panic at the ski resort up here, and they did it one year and lost a bundle, and then they did it the next year, and it put them out of business. They were a promoter based in Boise, which is like, yeah, man, like, that's the thing about being a promoter, is like, one big loss can totally put you out of business. And so yeah, I don't know that I'm gonna get into that. And like, I haven't even gotten into much booking for this year on the boats, and I don't think I'm going to, for a lot of reasons. Mainly, like, you know, with COVID, who knows who's going to want to come to shows. And I've already seen from a lot of my friends that book shows around New York in bigger places that ticket sales are only great for shows that are great. And there's a lot of shows that are struggling, that people have put on sale, that aren't doing so well. And I think a lot of people are still... They don't know what they're going to do post-COVID. And we also don't know how many people are going to be back in New York. And if the people are back in New York, we don't know who's going to be in the city. Like, if you live in the suburbs of New York and you came into work in the city at a big office building for a big corporation, then you would go out after work, go to a lot of these shows. And, you know, if you're not back in the office, if you're working remotely in the suburbs, are you going to work remotely on Zoom calls all day and come back into the city? Who knows? But, you know, next year is the Rocks Off 20th anniversary, so I think I'm going to go big for that. And kind of like come back at it. And try to make a big run at it for a 20th anniversary. And then I guess I'll see how I feel after that. I don't know. I don't know that I have it in me to keep being a promoter. It's a it's a really fucking tough gig, and it takes an incredible amount of hustle to like get shows going and figure out how to sell tickets to those shows. And like, it's been a long time doing it. And though it's great to work for myself, it's like, I would love to book a venue for someone else, and get a salary and not lose sleep over whether or not shows are selling. But yeah, it's really tough when, you've got $5,000 or $10,000 guaranteed to a band, and you got to pay them whether or not you sell those tickets. And tickets aren't selling, and you're like, what can I do? And it's much harder to be a promoter now than it used to be, because it's harder to get people's attention. The best promotion that you can do for a show is through the band's Facebook and Instagram and email list and stuff. And it's a tricky situation, because it's like, now that bands can communicate with their fans so directly, it's harder to promote your own shows. And like, we have like 80,000 people on our Rocks Off email list, but like, we've promoted so many different shows over the year that it's hard to know like what kind of music all those people like. I mean, I kind of know because of what we promoted, but like, we might have 80,000 people on the email list, but if we have a Murphy's Law show coming up, we could send 10 emails about it, but like maybe only 8,000 of those people would even consider being interested in a band like Murphy's Law. And out of that, how many would really be interested, and how many still go to shows? Because we've collected those emails over the last 20 years, but if you follow Murphy's Law on Facebook, Murphy's Law can take a dedicated ad targeted just at people within 30 miles of New York or whatever. So it's just gotten a lot harder to like figure out how to sell tickets to a certain thing. Man, this is a tough week. I'm having a hard time building up the energy to make people want to listen to this, that I think makes people want to listen. So yeah, I don't know what I'm going to do in coming years. Like, I think I'm going to go big next year with shows. This year, I honestly, I don't know how I'm going to get through the winter. We got a handful of shows, and I'll make some money, and I'll probably end up getting a job up here of some sort. Some part-time, full-time job. We'll see. Maybe I'll sell some paintings. But Yellow Pine. So the weekend before we released this Toby podcast, there were two towns nearby that I've been wanting to go to, Warren and Yellow Pine. And Warren I went to and talked about on this podcast. That's an old mining town, and wasn't much to it, and I didn't really love it. The ride was nice, but not like the greatest ride ever. And then I had heard about this town called Yellow Pine, and it's famous. If it's famous at all, it's famous for having its Yellow Pine Harmonica Festival every year in August. And last year they had to take the year off, but I had heard about it last year, and it wasn't happening last year, so obviously I didn't go. And I've been talking to the people I meet around town. I'm like, you ever been to Yellow Pine? And it's like, nobody from here has been to Yellow Pine. And Yellow Pine is 27 miles from here as the crow flies, 71 miles if you're driving. And those 71 miles take 3.5 hours to get to, because it's just a long, windy mountain road to get there. And it's this tiny town in the middle of nowhere. And I went there, and I ended up doing like a loop from Macomb. I went down to Cascade, made a left, went past Warm Lake, and then you get past Warm Lake, and you're even at Warm Lake, you're out there. Warm Lake's like 30 miles from Cascade, and like the first 20 miles to Cascade, or all down a highway, or a 2-lane road that's 55 miles an hour. And then you make a left, and it's like a moderately curvy road, but not much, probably going 45 or 50 miles an hour for another 25, 30 miles, something like that. And then you make a left on a dirt road that's 26 miles long, and then you just go and zip back and forth, all sorts of switchbacks up through the mountains. And then you finally end up in Yellow Pine, and it really feels like the middle of nowhere, even though it's not mileage-wise if you're in a helicopter or you're flying crow, but it's really out there. And I pulled into town, and there's not much there. There's a hunting outfitter that'll take you on guided hunting trips, and there's a general store which was closed. I was there on a Sunday, And sign in the door just said, gone out for a bike ride. Be back whenever. Um, and then there are two restaurants. One is closed, and the other is the Yellow Pine Tavern. The one that's closed is for sale for $279,000 with a 3-bedroom apartment, I guess, on top of the restaurant. And I hung out in the Yellow Pine Tavern, and it felt like Minnie's haberdashery from The Hateful Eight. And the one in Warren felt the same way, the restaurant up in Warren, because these are places that they've obviously been there since the turn of last century. And the Yellow Pine Tavern had like a huge, like 10-foot fucking chainsaw hanging from the ceiling. And they're playing the Eagles' greatest hits, and it just felt like old and rustic. And the woman from behind the counter came out from behind the bar and took my order, and there wasn't much to order. I think there was pizza on the menu, but I got a burger, and there's a bunny running through my yard. Cute. So I got a burger, and it didn't even come with French fries. It came with a bag of chips, which I thought was cool. Like, they don't even have a deep fryer. It's that kind of place. They're just a griddle top, I guess, and maybe an oven. And had a burger, had a couple of non-alcoholic beers. Old Milwaukee makes a very fine non-alcoholic beer in a can. Gotta say, if you're in the market for non-alcoholic beer, you could do a lot worse than Old Milwaukee. But yeah, had a couple of those, and I just hung out there, and I just got a really nice, good feeling. And the road I took back, turns out, Google Maps won't show you this, won't show you this road. So there's a quicker way to get from McCall to Yellow Pine, and that's a 52-mile road. But that is all dirt road, and that road is closed in the winter. There's like 3 ways into Yellow Pine, 2 dirt roads, 1 paved road, and the 2 dirt roads are closed all winter. The 1 paved road comes up from Cascade, and apparently that takes even longer than the dirt road. It's a single lane, super windy dirt road, but that's the one the county paves, so you can get there all year long, or at least it's paved until the last 15 miles. Then it turns into a dirt road, but it's still maintained by the county, and they plow it. So people can get in and out of this town. And I started asking the woman, Loren, at the Yellow Pine Tavern, like, I was asking her questions about what goes on there. Because I had, like, we've heard me say on here in the past episodes that, like, I want to go further out. Like, I want to go further out into the middle of nowhere if I can afford to, you know. A lot of that's going to depend on whether or not I keep booking shows and can do that remotely and then come back to New York to oversee them. But I like, this town is almost like too hip for me, Macomb. And it's not that hip, but it's just like there's been this like Brooklynification of America that's happened over the last 10 years or so, maybe more, where every town is starting to have like cool hip coffee shops. Like I encountered that one in Ely, Nevada, which is another super tiny town, and I went in and like they got all this cool art on the walls, and it's like I kind of want to get away from that. Like, and you really got to get into the middle of nowhere to get into like just a real sort of salt of the earth place. And that's what I found in Yellow Pine. I asked Loren, I was like, "What's going on up here? You know, like what happens? Is there a timber mill or something?" And she was like, "No." She's like, "There used to be a mine, but it's been closed forever. There's been talks of reopening it, but I don't think that's going to go anywhere. It's called the Stibnite Mine." And I've actually seen some stickers on cars with like, it says Stibnite Mine with a circle and a slash through it, as if people are saying, don't reopen this mine. I don't even know what they mine there. But they had some snowmobiles up there. I don't even know what you'd do. But I just like, I kind of want to move further out into nowhere, and I want to end up, you know, eventually I'd like to find a piece of land, and buy a piece of land, and build a little cabin of my own to live on. It's nice to live here with my friends, but I'm not going to live here forever. This is their home, and it's their guest house, and they're going to want to have guests come visit. But I got to figure shit out. I got to figure out how to make money. That's going to be tricky. Maybe when I finish writing this book, maybe I'll sell a bunch of them. Maybe I'll become a writer. That would be nice. Would love to live out my old age as a writer and a painter. We'll see. And an occasional show booker. And, yeah. But I really like Yellow Pine. I want to go back up there, and I want to ask Loren if she needs some help at the tavern. Some help working. I'd even volunteer up there during the harmonica festival or whatever, just to spend some more time up there. But when I took that road back, it was called Lick Creek Road. Lick Creek Road that's 52 miles, runs all the way from McCall up to Yellow Pine, and it's fucking gorgeous. I'd seen a guy up there on a motorcycle, and I saw him again the other day at the post office, and he had asked me how'd you get up here, how you getting back, and I told him I'm going to go back via Lick Creek, and he was like, "Oh yeah, man, it's fucking great. The road's open. There's some rock wash, meaning rocks that had like been kind of like pulled down onto the road from the snowfall over the winter, and but a combination of the county and residents and stuff pull that stuff off and cut down trees that have fallen over the roads. And there were some rocks that were easy to avoid on the motorcycle, and I moved a few off the road that I saw. And but yeah, Lick Creek Road was beautiful. When I saw him at the post office, he was like, "Did you come back via Lick Creek?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he said, "Man, it makes Yosemite look like an open field, huh?" And I was like, "Man, it's really such dramatic mountains and waterfalls, and like I can't believe it's so gorgeous." And one of the things I noticed was like up by Yellow Pine, there's tons of campsites, gorgeous campsites, and I rode my motorcycle through a bunch of these campsites, and they're all free up there. It's national forest land, and they're like halfway decent campsites. They don't have toilets, but a lot of them have like little fire rings that people built with rocks, and they have some picnic tables, and they're all along the creek. I don't even know. I guess it's one of the forks of the Salmon River or something. Payette River, Salmon River. I don't know. But it's just gorgeous river, and not that wide. Maybe 70 feet wide or something like that. But just gorgeous, dramatic scenery, and all the campsites were completely empty. It was a Sunday, and it wasn't until I got to within like 15 miles of McCall that I saw campsites that were actually full of people. And these like I talked to someone else. I ran into someone else when I got back from that trip, and the guy I had met who was fixing my friend's hot tub, who I keep running into in town. And that's the thing about this town. You run into the same people over and over. So if you meet someone once, then you just keep seeing them. And because there's not many places to go in town. And he's like, "Yeah, man, a lot of people, they come up here to McCall and they want to do some camping, but they also want to be close to the bars and close to the lake. So like they don't go camp in the middle of nowhere. They'll camp close to town so they can come into town and go to the restaurants or whatever. Not there's that many restaurants, but I guess like if you're going to come up here from Boise or wherever for like a quote unquote vacation." So I was like, I really wanted to go. That's why I was going to go last weekend up to Yellow Pine, because I wanted to just hang out at one of those campsites. So I'm definitely going to go up there this weekend. And I had seen a poster when I was up there for the Bald Mountain Knuckle Draggers Strongman Competition. It's like hammer and axe throwing and log rolling and stuff. I'll be curious to see how many people that brings in. But I think I'm going to head up there Friday. I'm going to work at the farm Tuesday and Thursday. And yeah, I head up to Yellow Pine Friday. Maybe spend the weekend and maybe see if Loran needs any help. And just kind of vibe out up there. And yeah, man, I still got all this shit going on in my head. That's if you've listened to this podcast before, you know I'm usually a lot more entertaining. I like to think more high energy, but it's been a really tough week. I'm trying to like tell this story about going to Yellow Pine. It's just not coming out. Rafting, like, and I guess it goes back to what happened Saturday night too, which probably I could have led with this, but I've got a fraught relationship with my mother. If you heard the podcast with Toby, and I got a message from her cousin saying that she's sick and that she needs me on Saturday. And that fucked me up, because I don't know that I can give her anything. I don't know that I can open that up. I don't know how I could probably go way. I could spend an hour talking about the issues that I've had since childhood with my mom. A lot of them come back to the abuse she let happen to me, physical and sexual, and me trying to tell her about it, and her just telling me it was no big deal, not telling me I'm sorry, not trying to protect me, but just telling me like that's just how life is. You know, that's how it goes. That shit's gonna happen, and like deal with it. Which is just stunning. But anyway, I don't even remember how much I got into on Toby's podcast. I did listen to it again. I listened to it when I rode up to Yellow Pine. I listened to it just to make sure that I was okay with putting the whole thing out. And I had to pull over and multiple times on the ride up there because I was crying. And crying on a motorcycle is not good when you're starting to fog up your visor shield on your helmet and all that kind of stuff. And so even though I went and listened to it again, like Toby asked me to re-listen, and he was like, put out whatever you want to put, like whatever you want to take out of this, I'll take out. We can edit it out. And I was like, I don't want to edit anything out because I said it all and I want to get it out there. And I don't regret not editing anything. I'm happy it's out there, and I know it's going to help my healing and dude, it's helped so many other people. I got a lot of messages from people I know, but I got over 50 messages from people I don't know who listen to Toby's podcast to tell me how much it's helped them. And a few people have said that more than a few, said that they've been suffering through the same things. And one guy just the other day sent me a message about how hearing me talk about what I've been through made him realize that he's been through the same things, and he had locked these memories away and is now looking for a therapist. And I think the whole point, I guess, of doing that and letting it out there is that it's going to help other people. And that's what I got so many of those messages. So I'm happy it's out there, but it's been difficult. But there's so much bullshit with my mother. And I know I talked about on the Toby podcast that I had kind of I had processed so much of it in treatment and in therapy since then. And really there was a moment in therapy where I wrote this thing on a Chinese lantern and let it go up to the sky. And it left me feeling a sense of closure, though closure's not a real thing in this world. That's why everybody's looking for closure, right? Like constantly looking for it. And yeah, just hearing from my mother's cousin that she's sick and she needs help. Like, my mother's alienated literally everybody. And I used to hear from her over the years about why this extended family member's a jerk and that one's a jerk and this one's an asshole. And it wasn't until after my dad died and I started taking my mom on all these trips and like just constantly getting berated by her about how things weren't good enough. And I did talk about on Toby's podcast how I sold this apartment that I loved and bought one that I thought she would be comfortable coming to visit me in. And she used to complain about that all the time. And I used to, at a certain point, I was like, I can't, this is just too much. It's like every time I spend time with her, she's just so mean to me. And I kept thinking, like, if I'm nicer to her, she'll be less mean to me. And so then I started when I would go on tour with Tragedy, my heavy metal tribute to the Bee Gees. I would go on tour with Tragedy, and I would invite her down to New York for a couple of days, spend a couple of days with her, and then ask her to house sit for me while I was away. But it was a way of letting her enjoy New York City, which growing up, she used to tell me that if it wasn't for her kids and she hadn't had kids, she would have lived out a wonderful life for herself. She used to always tell us that she regretted having kids, and that she used to tell us she could have been a Broadway star, a solid gold dancer, and that if it wasn't for us kids, she would have lived out her own dreams, which is obviously fucked up to tell your kids. But so I would let her stay at my apartment while we were out on tour, and then I would come back from tour and spend another day or two with her and then send her back to Boston. And every time I would come home, she would have rearranged the apartment moved everything, like even moved what drawer I kept the silverware in, all sorts of shit. And I would try to tell her, like, you can't do this. This is my home, not your home. You do whatever you want in your home, but like, you have to respect my home. She couldn't. I don't really want to get into details, but it may seem very callous that I'm like, I can't call my mother. I can't go back and visit her, even if she's sick. I can't open the door to more hurt. And that leaves me feeling guilty, which I shouldn't, because I did so much for her over the years. Especially after my dad died, I tried to do everything I could to, like, make her happy and, like, give her some sense of comfort. And it was never enough, and I was always berated for it. Now, I don't even know that she's sick because I don't trust her cousin, who is also... I feel like I'm being manipulated. That's what it comes down to. And I went into it in therapy yesterday, and I had a couple talks with friends. Shanti came up here yesterday to my little house, and we talked about it a lot. And like, I feel like I'm being manipulated, and I don't. Her cousin couldn't even send me a message that said how she was sick. The message just said, literally, the message said, "Your mama still needs you." Then she sent a link, it was via text, sent a link to a interview I had done with a music business publication last July, and then just sent a message, she's sick. Like, not even a paragraph to say, hey, this is what's going on. You know, your mom would really like to talk to you or something. And, like, I talked to my other sister, the one who lives in California, and she sent a message that said, basically, we went back and forth, and she said, Mom's had plenty of opportunities to love us. She's made her choice clear over the years, and I don't want to get involved. And that just kind of left me feeling the same way. And that's really kind of slammed on me the last couple of days, though, because it's like, I don't want my mom to hurt. I don't want her to suffer. But at the same time, like, I know that if I open that door to communication with her, it's going to cause me hurt and suffering. And I don't think it's going to cause her any... I don't think I can make her feel any better. I don't even know that we would even be able to communicate based on the level of dementia she had 3.5 years ago when I last spoke with her. So I can't imagine things have gotten any better. I can only imagine they've gotten much worse. And she hasn't called. She hasn't reached out. She hasn't left me messages since we stopped talking. So, yeah, I don't know what good could come of it. And I don't know what good would come of seeing my other sister who lives up in Boston and who is very problematic and manipulative and, I guess, evil. Evil's pretty much the word for her. I know it's, man, I don't want to get, I don't want to stick in with all that. God, this is I guess I needed one more podcast like this after what we talked about with Toby. I hope next week I'll get back to, back to better, right? Obviously things like, things are going to change. They're going to go up and down. I could have faked my way through this week. If you're still listening, God bless you. I know this kind of shit's not easy, but a lot of the messages I get and what make it easy to keep up this podcast is a lot of people, like back in February or March, when I was going through the second chest infection, I put out a podcast. It was kind of like this one, but I was in a much darker place. This one I'm just not feeling great, but I'm not miserable at all this week. I felt like for the past week, and especially since Saturday, like I went out rafting on Sunday and I forgot about the whole thing about my mom. But then yesterday I was right back in it. And I just felt like, if you've ever been four-wheeling or motorcycling in the dirt, you get stuck in the mud. I felt like I was just spinning my wheels and not getting anywhere. And I was very anxious for a lot of the day yesterday. I woke up, was super anxious, meditated, it helped a little. Then tried to do some shit around here, tried to do some writing, just super anxious. So I called Shanti, she came up, we talked, had another ear to get on even after therapy, and felt a lot better, but then fell back in anxiousness. And, the podcast I did in March, the one I was I almost deleted it because I was in such a bad place, but I got so many positive messages after that one of people saying it's great to hear someone else is going through shit. So, like, I guess that's why I'm doing it today. I thought about just turning it off and not doing a podcast this week. But, you know, if you're still listening, I hope you're getting something out of it. And you know, the last one, so many people said it's nice to hear that. I don't know, nice to hear. That sounds so fucked up. Like, it's nice to hear someone else is miserable. And I don't want to sound like I'm totally miserable, because I'm not miserable. I'm just having a tough time, like a lot of us are. And, like, sometimes you just got to pull your fucking pants up. And, you know, I almost thought about not going to the farm today, too. I thought about that yesterday. And I was like, I just need a day off. But I was like, you know what? A day on the farm is probably going to be a lot better than sitting around here. Because I you know, just get my hands dirty again and get my knees dirty and dig into shit. I did, though, on Saturday when I was painting all day. I was listening to a lot of Creedence Clearwater Revival. And, man, what a fucking band. Like, from 1968 to 1972, that band put out so many fucking hits. And just wrote so much incredible music in such a short span. And for a band that was from Northern California, they had such a fucking unique swamp boogie sound. The whole Born on the Bayou thing. Keep on Chuglin, Susie Q, Heard It Through the Grapevine. I brought this up before in my social media, way back, but is there another artist that anyone can think of? Very curious. Like, John Fogerty wrote Proud Mary, you know, Rollin' on the River. He wrote that song, and it became a huge hit for Ike and Tina Turner. So a white guy wrote a song that a black artist turned into a massive hit. And I'm talking massive hit. Everyone knows Proud Mary, and everyone knows Ike and Tina's version of that. And then he took a black song, Marvin Gaye's I Heard It Through the Grapevine, and turned that into a massive hit. And I wonder if anyone else has ever done that. Has a white artist ever had a song covered by a black artist that became a massive hit, and then also covered a black artist and turned that into a massive hit? I brought it up on social media before. I brought it up to some of my rock nerd friends, and none of us can think of that. Think of anyone who did that. The Beatles and the Stones, obviously, and plenty of other white artists took black written songs and turned them into hits, but not a lot of black artists have taken white written songs and turned those into huge hits. So I'm curious if anyone knows anything else about that. But I was painting all day Saturday, and I was just watching tons of live Creedence Clearwater footage, and then, you know, YouTube keeps feeding you more shit based on what you were just watching. So at a certain point, it switched over into this, like, French television show had done a special on Creedence in 1970. And they were, like, playing music in their studio, and then it switched over to an interview with John Fogerty, and these words just kind of stopped me dead in my track, because it sums up my life. And he said, I had to go and transcribe it. It hit me so hard. He said, and at night, usually I'm home. I watch television and I read a little bit. It's maybe not exciting to someone else, but it's very exciting to me. To me, the nightlife, nightclubs, lights, big city, all that silliness is very dull, very uninspiring, not interesting. Because to me, that's a sad way of life. It's like, since you have nothing going on of your own, you have to go out and find stimulus to make your life exciting. And to me, that's really sad. And that just stuck me because, you know, I'm talking about wanting to move up to Little Pine because for the most part, I'm doing very well up here. You know, every now and then something comes out, and, like, you know, this week's podcast makes it sound like I'm doing awfully, but mostly I'm fine. And I don't miss going out. I don't miss music. I don't miss live music. If anything, I miss stand-up comedy. I'll go back to seeing live music. Like, I know I'm going to go see something in July. I'm going to go see Jason Isbell play up in Montana. I'm going to go see Built to Spill play down in Boise. I'll be back in New York for H2O, for the Pie Tasters, probably some other shows. I'm sure I'll be back in New York for like 2.5 weeks in October, so I'm sure I'll go to some other shows. I really miss stand-up comedy. So I'll get back to shit like that. I'm actually in the middle of my old band from 2014, White Collar Crime, a hardcore band. We're in the middle of recording a song right now, too. And I'll be sharing that on here maybe next week, if not definitely the week after. So, like, I've got plenty to keep me busy and occupied. But, like, John Fogerty's quote there, it hit me so hard because I had spent so many years in New York just constantly trying to go out, trying to like take my mind off of itself by going out to shows all the time. And whether it was shows, whether it was comedy shows, whether it was sporting events, whether monster truck races, fucking sumo wrestling, tennis matches, whatever the fuck I could go do, I would do because I was so afraid of being with myself. And all that work I did in treatment and therapy, and then all helped that. And I've talked about that here before. That's why I can go camping now. Like, no chance I would have been able to go camping by myself pre-treatment. I would have gone batty. But now I can just sit by myself, and it's fine. And so John Fogerty's quote about that hit me. Then he went on to say, then they went back to playing music for a while, and then they cut back to the same interview, and then he said, we did go through a stage of buying things, material things, right after, I guess, around the time Proud Mary was a hit. And it didn't take us very long to find out that the money is a very fleeting type thing. In other words, you can buy a new TV set or a new Rolls Royce, but you can't really live in them. You can't ride around in your brand new car all day and tell yourself, my, this is just a wonderful life here. At some point, you have to get out of the car and walk around in the world. I just came to the conclusion, why waste my time wanting these things? I guess our outlook is very middle class, really. We're able to make it by each month. We're able to buy a pair of shoes or something. So from that point on, you still have to exist in the world. You still have to get along with your friends. You still have to try to grow in your outlook. Let's say mature in the way you see the world. And money doesn't help you do that at all. And fucking bingo! That shit all really hit hard too. Because, like, obviously, I'm struggling financially. I talked about on Toby's podcast. I had saved up a lot of money over the years. Over 200 grand. And I fucking pissed it all away and blew it all when I was planning on killing myself. I pretty much just stopped working, caring about earning any money. And then I was spending money, staying in motels and eating. And, like, I didn't buy anything nice. What I did with most of my money was just give it away to GoFundMes, to strangers, to people I knew. I just Venmo'd and PayPal'd money to people I knew who were in trouble, and then just spent a lot of it on just every GoFundMe that I saw. I would be like, yeah, here's $500, here's $1,000, and that shit just disappears before you know it. And before I knew it, it was basically gone, and none of that mattered to me. And the scariest thing was that all felt so normal at the time. That's the scariest thing to think about when I go back to that time, is like how normal it felt that I was going to kill myself. And I didn't think at all like, man, this is fucked up. What are you doing? I just felt like, all right, yeah, this is great. And so, you know, since I got out of treatment, I was all lined up to have a great season in 2020, I guess, with shows and boat cruises, and would have made a bunch of money back, and, like, I guess would have been fine. And then all that got swept away, right? So I ended up just kind of taking off, and I did okay selling masks, and came up with that hustle not long into the pandemic, and made a few bucks with that. And then through the unemployment program, I was like, okay, I can leave New York and just hit the road. And now I'm back to, like, having nothing, but it doesn't bother me that much. Like, the only thing that bothers me when I think, like, oh man, if that restaurant in Yellow Pine, like, if I still had that money, then I would probably just go buy that restaurant, live in Yellow Pine and run a restaurant and not care how much money it made. The only thing, the thing about money is, like, I don't really want anything nice. I never really cared to have anything nice. I have a nice motorcycle. I've always had nice motorcycles, but other than that, like, I never really wanted anything nice. I bought a watch once in 2007 or 8. I bought like a $6,000 Breitling watch, and like, I ended up pawning it in April, like when the pandemic hit, because I was really out of money. Like, I was completely broke and I didn't know what to do. But I, like, never liked it. I bought that watch. I wore it out a few times, and I thought it was, like, it always represented to me the foolishness of money. Because I bought it, and I remember in my head at the time, it was like, I dressed like such a bum. I was like, if I have a really nice watch, then I can go into, like, business meetings and have this watch on, and people will look at me and they'll be like, this guy isn't dressed like a bum because he's broke. He's dressed like a bum because he feels like it. Otherwise, you wouldn't have such a nice watch. I wore it a handful of times, and then it just lived in a drawer. And then it actually felt great to pawn it. And the way pawn shops work, if you've never pawned anything, like you go, they'll give you a certain amount of money, not even close to what your item is worth. And the idea is that they charge you a crazy interest rate. And then you'll buy it back from them at a certain point. And if you don't buy it back by a certain point with a crazy interest rate, then they'll sell it. So they give you a lot less than what it's worth because then they want to be able to sell it and make a profit. And I knew when I brought it to this pawn shop in Brooklyn, I was like, I think I got like $1,200 for it. And but at that point, I needed $1,200. It was before I had started selling masks, and the money I had left when I got out of treatment, I had gone through, and then I started using credit cards because I would have been fine if we had shows that had started up again. March 14th, I had a big sold-out show with Major Lazer that got canceled by the pandemic, and then I was literally down to nothing, and I was like, I don't know how I'm going to survive, and I assume that when I figure out how to make money again, I'm going to feel a lot better about it. And I'm going to value it a lot more than I did in the past. I'd been making money for so long. I came to New York broke for the most part, couple $100, like literally $300 when I moved to New York in 94, which didn't matter because if you've never had money, any amount of money is a huge deal. And then once you have money, the joy I found of having money was it was nice to buy an apartment, and then I bought that other one because I thought my mom really wanted it, and then I hated that apartment so much. I regretted it because I regretted selling the original one. The one I had bought for me, the biggest regret of my life, I guess, is I try not to live with regrets, but the biggest one is selling that one. But I sold that, bought this other one in Midtown. It's like new condo development. My mom said she would love it. And like, I just, all I cared about then was doing what would make her feel comfortable. Doing what was best for her, hoping that I would eventually win over her approval, which was a fool's errand. The only thing that money ever gave me over all those years was options. I never really wanted to buy anything nice. Stay in nice hotels every now and then, but like even then, I stayed in some of the nicest hotels you can imagine, but also the next weekend I would stay in the shittiest motel you can imagine. I always like that, and I like some nice restaurants, but also like give me fucking dumplings in Chinatown. So yeah, I think I understood from a long time ago the second John Fogerty quote there that like money's not going to buy you happiness. It's just going to buy you options though. And like now I'm just bummed out that I don't have any money because I don't have a lot of options. And really the only option I want is for a place to live. Like I want to figure out how to make enough money to buy a piece of land and build a cabin on it. And like, I don't know, $100,000 should do it, I guess, eventually. And I'll figure that out. And when I do, I think, I'm going to value it in another sense. That's what I was getting at. Was like, I'd started making money in the early 2000s when I started Rocks Off and like really started doing a lot of shows that were my own shows. Because when you're working for someone else, you're creating value and profit with your labor and your smarts, and you're not really seeing that, right? Because obviously that's a whole point of capitalism. Like, the person who owns the company and owns the business is going to reap the majority of the rewards. So when I was working for other people, I wasn't making that much money. Then I went to work for myself, started making money. And once I started making money, none of it really mattered to me. I only cared about making money because of the idea of making money. Like I was never like, if I make more money, I can do this with it. And for a long ass time, I had enough money in the bank that I just didn't need. The beauty of it was I didn't have to think what anything cost. So like I'd go grocery shopping. I didn't care if the grapes were on sale, the way I do now. I didn't care if I was buying the more expensive version of almond milk or whatever, things like that. But it was never like I'm going to amass a fucking huge amount of money and I want to buy a Ferrari and I want to buy multiple apartments or invest. I was never an investor. I just wanted to be able to live life however I felt like living it. And what that turned into was a lot of traveling. And what that traveling was escaping though. So yeah, I never valued the money much because I didn't really know what to do with it or have anything I wanted to do with it. Now I feel like when I start making money again, when I figure something out, I'll, and buy a piece of land and build a cabin with it, I'll really be able to sit in there and be like, yeah, this is what fucking matters. Like, I did this. I went from a high point to my lowest point and then crawled my way back up to a high point. So I'm really looking forward to getting there. I can't believe we've gone over an hour now in this podcast. I feel a lot better. So if you're listening, I hope you feel better. I guess I'll be back next week, hopefully with some more interesting, fun stuff. I do have an idea I'm going to get to soon. I might get back to the How the Music Business Really Works, which is supposed to be a series, but I'm also going to get to, I put out an album. I started a record label in 1997, and the first record I put out was 35-track compilation of punk bands doing TV theme songs, and someone sent me all the files to it recently, so I'm going to go through track by track and talk about how that album got put together, and I think that'll be a fun episode. There'll be a lot of interesting old stories from that one, but I'm sure I'll come up with other stories. Crazy. I talked about a lot of the shit on Toby's podcast that I thought would become long stories here, but may delve more into them: catching on fire, falling off the building, beaten up by juggalos. But I'm sure I'll come back with more positive, fun stuff that's entertaining to listen to. But I hope if you've listened this far, you're still tuned in. I hope you like it. I should bring up again, I got a lot of messages. I'm still working through them, but I have responded to a bunch. And the ones that were most serious and people, I think, who had something that they needed to say, I tried to get back to. But if you do want to get in touch with me, at Jake Rocksoff on Instagram. You can find me on Facebook. My phone number, 917-443-7615. A bunch of people took me up on that and sent me texts. Yeah, I guess Speakeasy Meats. If you need to order meat, I can't really get into an active promo for this one this week, but 4th of July is coming up. We do have a sponsor. Adam Bauer and Speakeasy Meats have sent me a lot of meat to be eating up here in Idaho. So if you need meat, freeze, vacuum sealed, frozen meat that all you need to do is just heat up in your oven or on your grill for the 4th of July coming up. Go to speakeasymeats.com if you want to help a small business. Another guy who had his career wiped out by the pandemic in the music business. He's getting back on his feet as a booking agent, but he's also got an incredible new company called Speakeasy Meats. Check out their monstrami, brisket, their Huey chicken, their cluck cluck wings, and yeah, just go to speakeasymeats.com, use the discount code Jakey, 30% off. And hey, go to bigcartel.rocksoff.com. No, rocksoff.bigcartel.com. If you want to buy a McCallum t-shirt, I made these awesome t-shirts that are a play on the name of the town where I live. The town where I live now is called McCall, Idaho. I made a shirt that says McCallum, where all your troubles melt away. If you want to buy one of those t-shirts, you rock it, you'll look good, I promise. I can't. I don't have the energy to ask people, spend money, whatever. Just go to Speakeasy Meats. Anyway, God bless. I love you. I love so many people. I have so much love to give. And even in a tough week, if I haven't replied to your message, it's coming. It's coming. Thanks for listening. I guess we'll be in touch. Keep your feet on the ground. Keep reaching for the stars. Things aren't nearly as bad as they seem. All things shall pass, right? This too shall pass. I'm sure I'll be back up and energetic next week. And that's it for now. Peace.